In 1984, legendary horror writer and director Wes Craven released the film A Nightmare on Elm Street, which told the story of a severely burned man who wore a knife-laden leather glove and murdered children in their dreams. The character has gone on to become one of the most iconic movie villains of all time and has haunted the minds of Gen Xers and millennials for nearly 40 years. But who was Freddy Krueger, and was he real? On October 14th, 2017, a man by the name of Lamar Foster posted a blurb on his Facebook timeline which reads, "Did you know? The Freddy Krueger character was based on a real serial killer who lived in Cincinnati, Ohio in the 1800s? According to police files at the time, Mr. Krueger had killed at least 20 children within a 3-mile radius of where he lived. He reportedly murdered the children only using a gardening claw." Along with the blurb was an image of a headstone which read, "Frederick Krueger." It didn't take long for the post to go viral, and in subsequent days, the post started taking on a life of its own, being passed around to multiple social media platforms. The name of the location would change occasionally. One day he was in Oklahoma, another Brooklyn, and another Buffalo, but the guts of the story remained the same. He lived inside an abandoned factory, having set up a small living area. He was eventually caught, tried, and found to be criminally insane. He spent the rest of his life in Kings Park Psych Hospital before dying unexpectedly in his sleep. To this day, and long before the Nightmare on Elm Street films, Kings Park Psych Hospital was said to be haunted by the ghost of Freddy Krueger. Now you may be thinking, some things aren't adding up. Why did the cities change, and why is Freddy's last name Krueger misspelled? And you'd be right. It didn't take long for websites like Snopes and even Facebook to debunk the story. They even added a fake news badge to it. But you didn't need Snopes and PolitiFact to debunk it. The original poster even ended the blurb by writing, "Actually, I just found this picture and made all that shit up. Happy October, everybody." But that's not the end of the story. In the late 1840s, a severe depression halted economic growth in Germany, all while crop failures led to major famine in the region. This caused widespread discontent for the German Federation, leading to an all-out revolution. Because of this, from 1845 to 1855, an estimated 1 million people left Germany for the United States and settled mostly in cities in the Northeast and Midwest. Among those was Frederick Conrad Krueger, who settled in Cincinnati, Ohio, and is the real person that lays beneath the headstone in the viral Freddy Krueger post. There's not a lot of information that can be found about Frederick Conrad Krueger, other than that he was buried next to his wife Magdalena at the Spring Cove Cemetery in Ohio, which, despite having a name very similar to the fictitious town of Springwood, Ohio in the Nightmare on Elm Street films, appears to be only a coincidence. So who was Freddy Krueger based on, if not an economic refugee from Germany? Well, according to Wes Craven himself, the name Freddy Krueger actually comes from a real-life bully he encountered in school. The look of Freddy Krueger was inspired by a man Craven once saw when he was a child, looking out the window. And Freddy's iconic knife-laden glove was simply inspired by animal claws. Everything about Freddy Krueger seems to be rooted in simple reality. But what about the slasher's ability to move through dreams and kill you in your sleep? Well, even that has a link to a very real and very dark part of human life. I'd read an article in the LA Times about a family who had escaped the killing fields in Cambodia and managed to get to the US. Things were fine, and then suddenly, the young son was having very disturbing nightmares. He told his parents he was afraid that if he slept, the thing chasing him would get him, so he tried to stay awake for days at a time. When he finally fell asleep, his parents thought the crisis was over. Then they heard screams in the middle of the night. By the time they got to him, he was dead. He died in the middle of a nightmare. He was a youngster having a vision of horror that everyone older was denying. In the mid-1970s, war, political unrest, ethnic cleansing, and genocide devastated the part of the world known as Indochina in Southeast Asia. Tens of millions of people were killed. Those lucky enough to escape became refugees and were resettled across the globe. An estimated 1.3 million Laotian, Vietnamese, Hmong, and Cambodians came to the United States specifically. Shortly after the refugees began resettling, multiple reports of young and otherwise healthy men dying in their sleep began making its way through American media. All the men were refugees, and all of them from Southeast Asia. 5 deaths in Minneapolis, several more in Seattle, Portland, Montana, and California. Newspapers reported, the attacks were all unexpected, fatal, and utterly mysterious. There was an autopsy which put down the cause of death as acute cardiac insufficiency. That is a fancy way of saying they don't know exactly what killed them. The event is officially referred to as Sudden Arrhythmic Death Syndrome, or SADS, and was first reported in 1948 when 81 men in Oahu County, Hawaii died in their sleep. The disease was largely forgotten until a resurgence in the early 1980s, which was picked up by the media in the United States, including the LA Times, which was then read by Wes Craven and led to the creation of Freddy Krueger. Even today, still is much unknown about what happened to these men, and according to the SADS Foundation, a jaw-dropping 210,000 people a year die from sudden arrhythmic death syndrome in the US alone. There are theories that the disease is something to do with a possible genetic trait, unknown toxins of the diet, or a seizure induced by post-traumatic stress disorder. Either way, the reality of it all is proof that life can indeed be stranger than fiction, and the story behind Freddy Krueger is even scarier than the character itself. Hey, long time no see. I hope you enjoyed the video. I know I had a good time doing it. As I was researching, I had no idea where it was going. So just kind of learning about it in real time, it made me feel a little weird at some points. But I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed writing it. If you did, please hit the like button. If you disliked it, it's all right, hit the dislike button. If you like the channel and you haven't already, please go ahead and hit subscribe. And if you would like to help out the channel financially, you can at patreon.com/mydumbquestion. As always, you can catch me on the Xfinity Tampa Bay and twitch.tv/mydumbquestion and all the social media platforms at mydumbquestion. I will see you all soon and hopefully more often. Have a good one. Peace.